This time on cherry picking, we put disc brakes on this wagon. Pretty good. That's right, today we are working on my 66 Ford Country sedan, and we're gonna go ahead and do a disc brake swap as well as a full front suspension rebuild on this thing and an alignment, hopefully to get it ready in time for my 800+ mile road trip to Arizona and back, and hope this guy can make it. But first, before I have to do the disc brake swap, I actually have to fix my rear axle seals because they were leaking. So, past Aaron, take it away. All right, well, we're out here. We're gonna fix the axle seals on the wagon. Kind of knew that my axle was leaking a little bit, at least the rear end was leaking. And, well, I was taking a trip to pick up my 69 Mach 1 hood that I bought to put a shaker hood on the Mach 1. And on the way back on the freeway, I took a big old brake stop, just to hard on the brakes, and well, there was a bunch of smoke behind me, and it smelled like oil, and I honestly didn't know what to make of it until got off the freeway a few minutes later and didn't really have very much brakes. I thought, well, that's odd, I lost my brakes. No, just the axle seals are basically gone. It spit out oil, gear oil, all over my rear brakes, so I didn't have any brakes. So anyways, we're gonna fix it. We just gotta jack this guy up, replace these guys. So let's do it. The pumpkin is way in there. This jack has like no fluid left. Oops. Let's do that. You know, they're really dirty now, but these wheels were such a great deal. $50 for all 5. Tell me where you can get a better deal than that in brand new Magnum 500s. Take our hub off, which unfortunately has parts, which is never good. This is what's left of the self-adjuster that has somehow completely unadjusted itself. Got 4 bolts. Now I was hoping I was gonna get lucky and just be able to yank on that, but there we go. Simple as that. Oh yeah. Oh, that is thick. That's got an interesting texture. Ford 28 spline axle bearing that seems to be in pretty good shape. I guess now we just gotta pull the seal out and put the new one in. So, okay, well, it's the next day and the sun is going down. I actually had the wrong seals. They were too small. Now I have the correct seal. Turns out that station wagons and police interceptors, although did not have 31 spline axles and had just the 28 spline axle, they did have the larger heavy-duty bearings, which we found out in the parts book. So they actually have a heavy-duty axle seal that is the same size as the 31 spline axle that came in 428s and 427 cars. So that being done, had to order it, had to wait. It's the next day, doesn't matter. I'm putting it in. I also fixed my brakes and put a new spring in. I'm gonna go ahead, clean this guy out. I'm gonna go ahead and just use a tiny bit of gasket shellac. And can't find my seal driving kits, so we have this nice 3/4 inch set of sockets that I went and picked the closest one. It's a little slightly smaller, flat as we can. All right, and that's all the way in, I believe. So let's put our axle back in there. And we actually want to probably get a little bit of oil. Oop, too much oil, way too much oil. Way too much oil. Guess we'll put some of this on the splines, since I did actually try to clean this up. Didn't work too well. And we'll put some on the seal itself. Slide it on in. I'm gonna get the other side done before the sun falls down. So we'll see you when we're doing brakes. Thanks, Past Aaron. Those axle seals, what a doozy, huh? Got the wrong ones, and turns out anyways, now we're actually gonna get into the disc brake swap. So now if you step into my office here, where my table of tools is, you can see that on the ground over there, we have a set of rotors, spindles. We have a set of rotors, spindles, and calipers off of a 72 Ranchero. Now the reason that this works is that 72 Rancheros, and actually 72 through 79, use a very similar setup as these 65-6 Galaxies. So these spindles basically bolt right in, and we're going to be using some used units that I got for a pretty good deal because, well, they work, and actually these did receive a brake job whenever they were on a car, so they've got brand new brake pads, and the rotors have been turned. They're just, you know, just need some resurfacing. But that is not all we're doing today. We're also going to go ahead and take a look into this box where, as you can see, I have a whole box of some great NOS Ford parts, or NORS, new old replacement stock. These are stock Ford parts, basically an entire front end rebuild kit for a 72 through 79, and really a 65 through 79 Galaxy or Ranchero. This is upper control arms, lower control arms, tie rod ends, strut rod bushings, other bushings, tie rod ends. I already said tie rod ends. End links for the sway bar bushings, even a idler arm. So this entire kit is to rebuild the whole front end, and basically everything on here is going to bolt right onto this. The only thing that's slightly different is the upper control arms, but we'll get to that and we'll see how different they are and if it makes a difference. Now, the entire reason I need to do the whole front suspension on this guy is, well, I'll show you right now. And if you take a look into my engine bay, you can actually see right to the upper control arm. And it's going to be a little bit hard to see, but there is a bushing back there, right there on the upper control arm. The bushing front and back on both sides is completely blown out. So we've basically been driving this thing around with completely blown out bushings in the entire front end. The lower bushings are blown out. I mean, it's been a recipe for disaster. It's actually a miracle that my tires haven't worn themselves thin and that it tracks correctly on the road, because there is a lot of front end play. I didn't even know that it had all this play until one day I was just driving around and I did something and I heard a clicking in the front end, and then I heard some squeaking and some more clicking. And ever since then, I've just been hearing all this clicking. Well, I came out one day, took a look, all the bushings were blown out. So we're gonna replace them all. Let's get into it. We gotta tear this old suspension out and then we can start putting the new stuff in. Let's do it. Now, when it comes to disassembling everything, I'm not gonna try to record and show every little bit. I'm gonna throw up a time lapse because you know what it is, a bunch of unbolting. So let's get to it. All right, I've got the spindle off on this side, so now we are just ready to take the strut rod bolts off, and then we can drop the lower control arm and take that spring out, and then we can take the upper arm off and do it all backwards and do it on the other side. And as you can see, I don't think that's supposed to be as easy to move as that, so anyways, we'll keep going. All right, and the front suspension is off entirely, except for one thing. We still have to get our strut rods undone, but let me show you those. So if you can see up in there, that's where our strut rods are, and there's not really a good way to get a wrench in there, so those are going to be fun. But if you can see, all of the rest of the suspension is completely taken off, driver and passenger. And if we come over here, you can actually see the differences between the two setups we've got. So like I said, this is a service replacement part. Number is D7AZ, which I believe translates to 77 full-sized. I believe A is full-sized, and I don't know what Z is, but it's basically full-sized Fords in the late 60s, early 70s. So this is basically a direct replacement part. As you can see, I have the two lined up to each other, and there's just a slight difference. And there's some differences between these two. The biggest being this scoop right here is slightly different. Not going to affect anything, I don't believe. And instead of the bolt-in style like this has the threaded bushing ends. And the rest of it looks basically the same. The distance from here to here looks identical, and our lower control arms are actually identical. There's a slight difference in design. It's more round on this one, but basically it's exactly the same, and this one can be front or rear sway bar end mounting, but the holes are the same and the bushings are the same and they're the same length. So that's what we're basically putting in now. So let's reverse everything we just did and put all this new stuff in, and then get those strut rods off, and that's the easy part. And then we move on to the spindles and the disc brakes, which are going to be a little bit harder and more complicated. So let's get this easy stuff back in. Time lapse time. Okay, so we've officially hit our first 2 roadblocks, so let me show you what's going on. The first one is kind of a huge deal. We've got our spindles here, which, as you can see, are all bent up. I already straightened this one because this is the driver's side one. But as you can see, we've got a bolt missing, and that bolt basically bolts up the whole caliper bracket to the spindle. This side is still here, it's right there. Excuse the ravens. But this one's missing, and I didn't notice this when I picked these up, but they probably did what I did to my 69 Mustang, where I unbolted that bolt thinking that's how the caliper came off, and it's not. So we're missing a bolt. I'm gonna have to find one. Unfortunately, I just went and looked, and I do not have another set of these single piston disc brakes. So I'm gonna have to figure something out. The second small issue is over here. It's kind of hard to tell, but basically our shock lower mounting bolts aren't going to work. So I just have to find some lower mounting bolts. Man, these ravens are going crazy. They just had a fledgling, and I think they're a little protective over it. But so shock bolts, not a huge deal, and this disc brake bolt, which I got to find another one. So I'm gonna see if I can search some more. I'm gonna take this one off, but in the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and throw everything on the driver's side on, because basically all of the suspension for the passenger side, flip-flop, everything on the driver's side is on. I've got our lower arm, our upper arm, and everything's bolted back together except for the shock. And so I guess I'm just gonna do this all on the passenger side now. All right, well, I knew everything was gonna be too good to be true. It was going really well, actually. I got all the stuff back in really quickly. My sway bar bushings that I have are the right size. I just have to modify them a little bit. I even got a bolt to fix our spindle brake caliper dilemma. So that's all taken care of. But obviously things can't go too smoothly, and so the car decided to punish me. Still haven't figured out the shock bolting situation. Not a big deal, not worried about that. But I did have to do the strut rod bushings, which really wasn't fun, and I basically had to undo the entire lower setup that I already had. The spring was in, everything, because unfortunately the area for the strut rod bushings on these Galaxies is very compromised. From the factory, they were put together first as a chassis, and then the bodies were put on, including the core support, which happened to run about halfway right in the middle of the hole for the strut rod bushing. So you basically only have a swing of about 1/8 of an inch each time. So I did what everyone else would do and spent the last 45 minutes to an hour undoing one bolt. I had to undo what I already did, but that only took 3 seconds, of course. But that one bolt took me about 40 minutes to take it off, pull the whole thing forward for the new bushings that are really stiff and brand new and not worn out, and then get it started again, which was a lot of fun. I actually had to use a come along to pull the arm as tight as I could into the socket so that the rubber could compress enough to put the bolt on. So anyways, we're back to where we started on this side, and I still have to do the other side and the other strut rod bushing. Cool. But I'm at the point now where I can put the spindle on this side. So that's what I'm going to do right now, just get it out of the way. Unfortunately, I may have to take it off later to do the brake line because I'm actually going to make a hard line that goes up and over to the front side, and I'll show you that when I get to it. But for now, we're going to put the spindle on and tighten it up so that at the very least we can set the car down maybe tonight. It's about 6:40. I've probably got about an hour of sunlight still, so hopefully I can get that other side done in half the time. Never can go as planned. Anyways, we're going to put the spindle on. So we're just going to bring it in here. Of course, I didn't plan this very well. Lower this down. But there's our disc brake spindle. Bolts right on to the stock 66 equipment. Oh yeah, and that's got to go up a ton. No biggie. Just gonna hope that doesn't slide off. Oop. All right, we're in. And we'll set this nut on and then thread it up in there. There we go. Easy as that. Only took 8 hours, not too bad. Take everything off. I actually didn't expect to get this far today, so I'm pretty happy about this. I may even get the sway bar connected, we'll see. All right, that's starting to tighten up now. So now it is time. Got a wrench. That is absolutely not the right size. So we've got the spindle on, and now we just got to do the same exact thing on the other side. Then just do the sway bar, and then the tie rod ends, and then the shocks, and then all the brakes, and the proportioning valve, and you know, just a lot of stuff. So I'm gonna keep going on this and try to get the other side on tonight, and I'll meet back up with you when we've got other stuff going on. All right, and it's the next day. As you can see, I've got a kind of a mat going on here, and the car is, well, I've hit the point where slowing down is just going to happen. So let me show you what's been going on and talk about what's going on next. I'm almost to the brakes, but we've got some things holding us up. So let me show you. All right, so first things first, our strut rod bushings. As you can see, they are just a pain to get to. That core support is right in the way. And I got the passenger side done yesterday, got the spindle bolted up entirely. Driver's side didn't get to finishing until this morning. It actually took me like 30 minutes just to thread on that nut that was already started. That's how bad it is. My car was in a front end collision at some point, so maybe it was kinked somehow, I don't know. But if you come over here, I've got the driver's side spindle on, and I've even got the brake line bracket re-drilled, and I basically just swapped the passenger side and driver's side bracket and moved it from the back, which you can see right there, just to the front, and it kicks up and it's more stock and it doesn't pull too much when the brake is completely pulled out. This spindle is completely on, and we have cotter pins. As you can see, our sway bar is on. I actually had to put the old sway bar back on because the new one, for some reason, was physically too long, and it stuck out and actually hit the caliper. Now, I think if I moved my bracket forward, if I unbolt the bottom two bolts, twist it forward, re-drill those bottom two, maybe it will clear it. I don't know. But for now, I'm just going to run this because it works. It bolts right up. We've got some new end links on there. Not tightened up, of course, until the car's on the ground. And we have our shocks in, which I did have to drill for some new bolts. No big deal. But the shocks are in. So basically, we're at the point now where I need to replace the tie rods, which, as you can see, are just sitting on the ground. They're completely covered in gunk, so that's going to be a fun job. And then I need to take our calipers off to do the wheel bearings. As you can see, this is actually the proportioning valve we're going to use. So this is what it looks like. We're basically going to be replacing our stock distribution block with this guy. Just set that on there for now. But if we come over here to the passenger side, this is one of the issues that I'm going to be fighting. I'm glad that I decided to do wheel bearings. You know, I could have left them because this felt, you know, pretty good. But I'm glad I didn't, because this is all rusty, greasy junk. So, yeah, I basically just have to take apart this screw right there, knock out the holder for the caliper, take the caliper off, and then I can clean and re-grease those wheel bearings. So, pretty much right now I'm going to be doing the tie rods and the wheel bearings basically right now. So, let's get to it. And I will catch back up with you probably when I'm making some more brake lines. I already started to, but it didn't go too well. So, I'll see you then. Alright, it's been a while, but our tie rods are on. You may or may not be able to see. That was kind of a fight. I could not use the old couplers that are on the old ones because, of course, these ones are bigger. And so, luckily, I had some out back from a 59 T-Bird that were pretty much perfect and worked. We've got the rotor off, and I went ahead and just pulled the back bearing out. And everything looks okay, but I'm going to go ahead and clean up the rotor, clean up the surface, clean all the bearings, and then re-grease it and put it in. The brake pads that I thought were going to be good were, let's see if the sun fixes, not good, as you can see. So I had to get brake pads, and those are actually ready probably right about now. But I'm going to go ahead and clean this up, re-grease the wheel bearing, put it back on, and do the same thing to the other side. And then we'll put brakes on, and then we're moving on to finishing the brakes. So let's clean this and put it back on. Okay, and we're finally back to where we were before. Tie rods are completely on. Spindles are clean. Bearings are clean. Everything spins freely. I cleaned off all the rust with the, you know, resurfacer. And it does make a little bit of noise. A little loud, but we're going to ignore it. And then it was pretty full of junk, so it's all clean now. And finally, we're back to putting it back on, which ended up having to get brakes for it because, you know, old ones were bad. So we're going to just put this puppy on, which I'm going to be smart and use some of this disc brake quiet first before I get too far. Don't worry, because this stuff just gets everywhere. Way too much. Perfect. Just going to put it on like that one, just, you know, like it was made for it. This is going to need a big wrench moment. How is it supposed to go in? I'm gonna have to get down to look at it. You must become one with the car. Alright, I see we're hitting that there. There it goes. There you are. Perfect. Now I just have to grab the lockers behind me. Alright, we'll just tap this sucker in. Today, I had battle after battle after battle. Anyways, you didn't see most of it, but there was a lot of fighting to be had, don't worry. But, sun is going down. I gotta get the other brake on. Oh, that's not supposed to be like that. Hope I didn't hurt that in any way. Gonna get the other side on, and then I'm gonna clean up basically for tonight. So I will see you tomorrow in a second for you with the brake lines. I gotta make brake lines. It's kind of the last important thing, and put in the proportioning valve, kind of all encompassing. So I'll see you then. All right, it's been a while. I had to deal with brake lines and all sorts of stuff, but we're at the point now to bleed the brakes. But let me just show you some of this mess, and well, we'll just judge it harshly from the outside. So this here is what I've got going on. Whole lot of brake lines, as you can see, go in lots of different directions. Plenty of unions for this thing to leak out of. So, you know, that's great. But kind of looks factory. If the guy working that day was blind, it should work. So let's bleed brakes. All right, go ahead. You hold him?
No, I'm pumping slowly. We've got no pressure. We don't want to offset the valve.
Okay. Oop. If it's not wet so far, I think it would, okay. Ugh. Lots more of that. All right, and the brakes are bled. And I'll tell you what, it works. We've got disc brakes on the wagon. Honestly, I was a little stressed out there. We were pumping, we were doing the rear. I heard a lot of air noise at the front, and I thought, let's go to the front real quick. Started on this passenger side. I was getting nothing, no air, no fluid, nothing. Then went to the other side, got a bunch of fluid, got a bunch of air, cleaned it out, went back to this side, took a few tries, and then all of a sudden, just completely sludged, blew out of the line, and then all fluid after that. So it was just gunked up and had a bunch of stuff in it. Thankfully that happened, because I would have been really upset if I had to dig in there and figure out why it wasn't bleeding. But it's all bled. They work. When you step on the brakes, can't turn the rotors. So we've got disc brakes, and hopefully the proportioning valve works well. It is stock Ford, and it's made to work with this, so everything should be pretty well distributed, proportioned. That's what I'll say. But I can't drive it right now. We've got way too much going on, and it has to get in alignment still, because we changed all that front suspension. And more importantly, next week we're going to be doing a trans swap, and the alignment happens after that. So next time you're going to see this, we're going to be back from the alignment shop and test out our disc brakes and see how good they are. So we'll see you in a sec. All right, so just got this thing back from the alignment shop, and already drove it a little bit, obviously, to get it home here. But we're ready to go pick up some parts for my road trip that I'm taking on this thing on, which is why I need to do these brakes. Oh gosh, it's warm in here already. Open that up. And well, see how the brakes are. Oh, starts right up. It is cold because, well, it's the next day, but all right. Let's go. Brake test, they work. Now, with all my gauges in here, I did notice that the brakes work kind of the same as normal, but what I noticed is that my brake lights are still kind of the same as how they were. Mostly because I pull too much vacuum. On diesel, this thing pulls about 25 pounds of vacuum, which is a lot, at least for me. So that's mostly why my brake lights don't come on right away, and oh, they work great though. Kind of forgot I have a box back there. But so far they work pretty good, and they feel, honestly, they feel the same, and they should. They're stock Ford brakes with the stock proportioning valve. They're not supposed to feel significantly different, but they won't get as hot as fast and won't glaze over as quickly, which means that I'll be able to brake harder for longer, which is always important. So, yeah, feels great. Man, let's just kind of give it a little slam test. Not too hard, obviously, but you know, pretty good. I'd call that a success. Now I just really need to fix my transmission. So, anyways, I'll see you back at the house. Well, that's pretty much it. This thing has disc brakes now up front, and let me tell you how it is. Overall, the full suspension swap was pretty easy, and that's because it was all Ford service replacement parts for, well, this vehicle. So everything kind of bolted up and aligned perfectly. No big issues at all. The old stuff came out easy even because this car isn't rusty. It was just dirty and grimy, so it actually made it easier to get out the oily stuff. But the disc brakes themselves, how do they feel? So far, they feel the same. It doesn't necessarily stop any harder than it did before, which is kind of the goal. It's actually the intention of why I'm using the Ford proportioning valve, because the Ford valves are hard line. They're just made to feel how the disc brake cars felt. Not supposed to be any harder, any lighter. Not supposed to stop any tighter necessarily. So it feels the same. It does stop just as hard, and my old brakes did too. So really, it's longevity and ease of service and replacement that's going to make this a lot better in the future. Plus, my old wagon brakes would get really hot up front after a lot of hard braking and even light braking just driving around town. These cars are heavy. This thing easily 4,600 pounds, if not a little bit more, especially when it's loaded. And those heavy-duty front brakes, well, they're not discs, they do take a beating. So disc brakes stay a little bit cooler, and hopefully on my road trip it'll be just a little bit nicer. Axle seals, well, that was a little thing. Don't even know if I had to actually fix them or not, but I did, and you saw it. There you go. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like, a comment, subscribe even to the channel. If you want to see more videos on this guy, my 66 wagon that I call Stray Cat, it's on the channel a lot. It'll be here a lot more. Next up for this thing, well, what do we have? Well, we have the road trip, first of all. And then, well, transmission swap. I was hoping to do it before the road trip. Not going to happen. So you'll see that upcoming on Cherry Picking. See you then.